Hey there, fellow coders. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to delve into a topic that has been lingering in the back of my mind for quite some time. That is the questionable credibility of certain YouTube coding sensations. Now, before you start sharpening your pitchforks, let me make something abundantly clear. I'm not here to point my finger at anyone in particular. It's just that I think it's time we create a healthy dose of skepticism. Now, no sooner than finishing my YouTube script, Travis Media releases a video on this very subject. Although he has a different take. Of course he does. And honestly, I don't really have a problem with anything said in this video. However, he doesn't address most of my personal criticisms. The only thing that I might say to him would be to grow up better, because he's a Gen Xer like me, and we're supposed to call out the BS. And he definitely failed to do that. Let's get into it. In 2015, I found myself frustrated with burning an ISO image on a USB drive on Arch Linux. My favorite app was throwing errors, and in desperation, I turned to what many of us turn to: Google, Stack Overflow, and of course good old IRC chat, because I didn't want to constantly use the command line to burn my ISO images to my thumb drive. What unfolded for me was a revelation. In just a day and a half, I managed to write my first program in Bash without having a clue about coding. After this experience, it wasn't like I learned anything about coding either, because I was just copying and pasting certain solutions and seeing if they worked. It was quite exhilarating, but it is experiences like these that also make me question the legitimacy of those claiming to be coding wizards on YouTube. After all, they may say they work for Google or Microsoft, but they just might be full of it too. I mean, how would you know? Let's address the elephant in the room. How hard is it to tell everyone that you're a coding genius and you're essentially copying and pasting code from Stack Overflow, or even relying on AI like ChatGPT? Like, I'll be honest. If I have like a simple Bash or a Python script, I have ChatGPT doing it. But it does raise the question: do these YouTube sensations really know how to code? Or are they just excellent copy pasting? Or are they like me in that they delegate the easy stuff to ChatGPT and Copilot? One red flag that sets off my skepticism is when I see creators going against established conventions. I've witnessed tutorials that recommend practices contrary to the best practices or downright unsafe coding habits. No hyperbole here. A few years ago, I literally saw a YouTuber doing this. He was setting global variables in Python and calling them inside the function with the global keyword. This particular creator is still on YouTube with courses he is selling, and to date, no one has called him out. And let's not forget about those eye-roll inducing videos, like trying to connect MongoDB to Django. Seriously? Django is as opinionated as they come, and trying to shoehorn a NoSQL database like MongoDB into its framework is like trying to mix water and oil. You would literally have to torture Django to death to get a NoSQL database to work correctly. It really makes me question the depth of understanding that these creators have about the subjects they claim to teach. Now, if they would have used Flask with a fast API, connected MongoDB to that, I probably wouldn't have any red flags going off in my head. Honestly, even if you could get MongoDB to work correctly with Django, and I'm not convinced you could, I really don't see the point of all the extra work when you can just use something like MariaDB or Postgres? Why these so-called developers think this is a good idea is just beyond my level of comprehension. I have to be brutally honest here. It almost seems as though there is a secret group of developers who collude together in order to release the same content at the same time. Now, I follow Linux YouTubers like DistroTube, Luke Smith, Brody, and a few others. Sometimes it's just a coincidence that 2 or 3 creators put out a video on the same topic. Like Brody might put out a video on some aspect of ESPWM and DT on another aspect. This, I believe, happens sometimes. However, with developer content, anytime certain developers release one type of video, you see a whole group of creators releasing a video essentially giving that particular creator a reach around. Like they're literally regurgitating the same thing the first person said or did, and it's almost plagiarized. And of course, there are real developers who occasionally have a slight amount of misinformation. Case in point, Tiffin Tech. She recently released a video about the things she wouldn't be learning in 2024, but I do have this correction about her take on Perl. And just to be fair to her, it probably isn't her fault that she didn't use anything that was written in Perl when it was really popular. But it only became unpopular because of 2 reasons. One, it tried to become something besides primarily a scripting language. Whoever thought that Catalyst was a good idea, well, I'll just stop there. 2, Python is a really good scripting language, not quite as good as Perl, but it is readable, whereas Perl is not very readable. All too often, people would write some code in Perl, they would come back a year later, wondering what the code did, whereas that really doesn't happen in Python. Now, I don't think anyone should learn Perl in 2024. I actually think if you were thinking of learning Perl, you might consider Golang, Zig, or Python or something more relevant. We come to the same conclusion, but one person has their facts straight while the others relying on what they heard. It's fine to say you don't see Perl as a requirement on a job posting. True enough. But I don't think the emergence of JavaScript, Python, or anything else is what caused Perl's demise. That wasn't it.
So why did it decline? Definitely because, when you think Python, JavaScript, they have risen and Perl has started to decline because of that.
I think the thing that Travis Media and others don't get with the incessant promotion of all these coding boot camps in every single video is that it does raise an eyebrow. It begs the question, are these boot camps genuinely worth the investment, or are these creators just trying to cash in on their audience's enthusiasm? And it's hard not to chuckle when you see the same boot camp being advertised 10 times in a single video. Is it about education or a sales pitch at that point? Now, don't get me wrong. I get that it's a business, and the goal of a business is to make money. But you also turn people off if you are one of those slick salesmen. People tend to see you coming a mile away. And then there's Tech Lead. Where on God's green earth would we be without Tech Lead? Now, he's been talking a lot of crap these days, and lately he said that coding is essentially dead and that there's no point to learning development in 2024. But if you look in his description box, he's still selling his courses. He's just saying things that are outrageous for views because he's a sellout. He doesn't believe a word of it. As you can see here, my skepticism towards YouTube coding gurus stems from a mix of personal experience, witnessing questionable practices, and a healthy dose of common sense. As fellow learners and enthusiasts, let's stay vigilant, question what we're taught, and remember not everyone claiming to be a coding maestro might have truly earned their stripes. What do you think of these coding gurus? Are some full of it? Leave me a comment in the section below. And if you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Stay curious, stay skeptical, and happy coding.